Hey everyone, welcome to the NFL edition of the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast for January 18th, 2017, brought to you by FantasyLabs. I'm Matthew Freedman, the editor-in-chief, and I'm joined by podcast regular Peter Jennings on Twitter at CSURAM88. Adam Levitan couldn't be here. He's busy. He's out drinking Pete's beer money, so no Levitanimal, but we do have two fantastic guests for the show. Making his flex debut is Rich Hribar at Lord Reeves. He's a writer for RotoWorld. And then returning to the show is our week 2 guest and Rich's overlord, and that's Evan Silva at Evan Silva. He's the senior football writer for RotoWorld. Fellas, it's great to have you on the show. Evan, I'm going to start with you because once Rich starts to talk, there's really no stopping him. How were the divisional playoffs for you?
They were good. They were good, man. Did pretty well in DFS. I think that the divisional round was – I feel like it was pretty chalky. It was a pretty chalky week. I thought that the Cowboys were going to beat the Packers. To me, that was maybe the biggest surprise. But with the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing right now, I don't think that the Packers winning by any means is a legitimate surprise. But all the good plays hit. I felt like, and I liked that about the divisional round. Hopefully, we can get another chalky conference championship week.
Yeah, Rich, how about you? How did it go for you?
Yeah, it went all right. I had a way better wild card round. I think it was just last week. Just like there was no bad plays last week, so like I ended up just coming over a little bit ahead. Everyone got off. Even in that Seattle game, like when Baldwin and Graham, like those guys didn't have great games, but they still found the paint. So those guys found touchdowns and got plays. Basically, outside of the just owning Chiefs players, even Ware got a touchdown, but everyone kind of got a little piece of the action all across the board this week. So it was kind of even out there. So, I'm ready. One last week here of just 4 teams, so it's going to be interesting, but we'll get ready to shut it down.
Yeah, a lot of high-scoring games last week, so that was nice, but it did make everything seem pretty chalky. Pete, how was the week for you?
Yeah, it was one of the best playoff weeks I've ever had. It was really chalky. I had Deion Lewis basically everywhere, so that really helped out. And, yeah, it was basically, like you guys said, the chalk hit, so those are good weeks for me. And, yeah, sad to see football gone. We have one more slate, obviously, but it's only 2 games, so still should be somewhat fun for cash. But there's going to be a lot of overlap. And last week, I can't remember a better playoff slate for tournaments. So it's kind of sad to see the year end, but definitely looking forward to this show.
Well, can I ask CSU Ram, how do we attack this slate in terms of playing it? We probably have to be willing to leave some money on the table in a lot of lineups. And are we just trying to throw darts at smaller time guys that we think maybe have an outside chance at a big week? Or how do we do this? It's only 2 games.
Are you talking for tournaments or cash games?
Yeah, for tournaments.
Yeah, so on the Saturday only, I was actually fortunate enough to win the tournaments on DraftKings with 5 Falcons. I had 5 Falcons, 3 Patriots, and 1 Jimmy Graham. So I've never had success with the onslaught, but I think that's the strategy this week is find maybe a contrarian onslaught that we like or a more contrarian onslaught. But yeah, all the correlation rules kind of go out the window, so maybe that's an edge. I don't know. It's tough. I really love this Green Bay Falcons game. Obviously, it's the highest total in the history of the playoffs, or one of the highest. And yeah, it's gonna be tough figuring out where to go. That's a little bit different, but I do think kind of different roster constructions that people are afraid to do might be the right answer, especially an onslaught of a team that you like.
And Evan, let's kind of kick it to you there. In terms of, so again, a 2-game slate, you have Green Bay, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, New England. How are you thinking about approaching a smaller slate like this?
Yeah, for the past couple of days, I've been just messing around and, setting a bunch of different lineups and trying to come up with just plays that I like. I really haven't decided on that. That's why I thought this was a good opportunity to ask Pete about it,
Just stack that game, bro. What's the best team that has every single guy in that game but one guy in the Patriots Steelers game, and then just hope it's one of those 49 to 45 type games, something crazy,
Like the best lineups I think that I've built, or the lineups that I like the most, are stacking that game and maybe getting Edelman in the late game.
Yeah.
And also I think that one interesting way, because I think that the Patriots defense is going to be really, really high owned. And Bales has talked about in the past being willing to use cheaper defenses in shootouts And I think that the Falcons are mildly interesting this week. They paid off big time last week. The Patriots are just so clearly the best play. But I think that the Falcons in a shootout are a little bit interesting at home as favorites against the Packers, even though, we anticipate them giving up 30-plus points probably.
Yeah, well, DraftKings, it's a huge price difference, too. I know we'll talk about defenses later, but I think that's the one really interesting thing, too, is just like figuring out where the opportunity cost lies. Like a lot of people are going to hone in on the Patriots defense. What kind of teams can you make with the Falcons D or even Packers D that's way more contrarian, and just hope that the defenses are in like a relatively narrow range and capitalize with a different roster construction. So these 2-game slates are interesting. I'm not the game theory champ, but yeah, the chalk looks like stacking this Green Bay Falcons game.
Yeah, Reeves, what are you thinking for the smaller slate?
Yeah, pretty much echo the same sentiments. It's a lot like, your Monday through Thursday slate during the weekend season. You got your two games to build off of. Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to want to flock to that Atlanta Green Bay game and basically just try to, out of your multi-entries, just flood as many different stacks you can of that game, whether it be, Cobb with Julio, with Taylor Gabriel, or all the ancillary receivers, mixed in with a guy like Jordy Nelson if he's active, just for touchdown upside. Just basically mix and matching as many of those guys as you can. And like you said, just tacking on one of the guys that could hit, whether it be you save money and you get a guy like Antonio Brown, who, we'll get into, but, Bill Belichick just let Antonio Brown eat the last 2 times that they've played and not cared. So, I mean, yeah, basically that's what it is. We're looking to get that high-scoring game. Because, I mean, I think the other game could go under. I would probably say it will go under. Whereas we think that the first time these teams played, it was 33-32. They scored on 11 of 17 drives in the game combined. Cobb didn't play. Jared Cook didn't play. Ty Montgomery didn't play. Tevin Coleman didn't play in that game. So, I mean, they got there last time without all those guys. So, I mean, we have to expect it's going to get there again, especially with the way both these quarterbacks are coming into this game.
All right, good stuff there. Let's start to talk about some of the players in particular, and we're going to focus more on roster construction and game theory. And for more content on the slate, everyone should check out our NFL dashboard with positional breakdowns and preview matchups out by Friday. Evan, let's start with you. You said you've started to build some lineups here. Who are the potential chalky players that right now you're thinking about locking into your cash game core?
Well, in my first visit to the show in week 2, I think I did horrible on the skill game props because I had no idea what I was doing. So I actually came up with skill game props before the show this time. And one of my skill game props was going to be that Mohamed Sanu is one of the highest 3 owned players on the slate. I think everybody's going to play Mohamed Sanu on DraftKings.
Let's save that one. Let's save that one for later in the show. But so Sanu's a guy that you're really high on and you're looking to lock in.
Well, I don't even know if I would say that I'm necessarily that high on him. I do think he's a good player for a lot of different reasons. But I mean, I think that everybody is going to play him at his price point. They're going the Packers have been great against slot receivers. Mohamed Sanu had 9 for 84 and a touchdown in the first game. Just I think a lot of things that will lead to and price is good in the shootout. And last week, I mean, he just every single box that I think people look for, he is going to check a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Pete, any thoughts there?
I think he'll be really heavily owned. I mean, I think people are going to want exposure to this Falcons game. An interesting part of this week is just going to be Julio. I mean, I fully expect him to play, but he's going to be limited all week. And, the real thing is how long is that Q tag going to be next to him on the site. So I think that's going to be interesting. I think people will look to Sanu, certainly. Gabriel, I think, will also be interesting in GPPs, but I don't think he'll be chalk. I think the chalkiest play across both sites is probably going to be someone like Deion Lewis at 5,300 on DraftKings after last week. I think he'll be really heavily owned. In terms of quarterbacks, for me personally, I want to get as much Matt Ryan as I can. I'm just buying this Atlanta offense at home against this Green Bay defense. So I think Ryan will probably end up being the chalkiest quarterback because he is a little cheaper than Aaron Rodgers, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm curious where you guys think the ownership's going to go.
Rich, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, here we are, man, 19 weeks into the 2016 season, and by far and away, Jared Cook is like the most chalkiest option at his position. Like we've made it.
Yeah.
We've made it. It's it's been a bad tight end season for DFS in general, and it's been elevated in the playoffs. Tenfold, and this week it's bad. We can't really count on Ladarius playing. He's a guy that has a little bit of upside, but you've got like Jesse James, like there's like the second or third best option, like a catch and fall tight end. It's Jared Cook, man, by far and away. He's got 41 targets over the past 5 weeks. He's got 8 or more targets in 4 of those 5 games. And he's got 5 catches in 3 of those games. So he's basically going to be like a default, guy that a lot of people go to at the tight end spot. I think Edelman is going to be a real popular guy again. Just when you look at what Edelman's done since Gronk has been out, he's averaging just under 13 targets per game over the past 8 weeks. Over a whole course of a season, that's a 200 target pace for a season. 34% of team targets over that span. He's basically a lock, and he's had a ceiling the past 2 weeks too. He's starting to get some deep targets, over 130 yards this last 2 games. So I think where he's priced at too, he'll be a guy that basically gets locked into like wide receiver 2 spots for people.
Yeah, I think Cook will probably be the highest owned player. That's smart. I think on DraftKings, I think the second highest owned will be Lewis. But yeah, I think that Cook, we have him at 61 to 70%. We might need to bump that up even more. How many people are going to click Jesse James or Martellus Bennett or even like Richard Rodgers, I guess, which is an interesting GPP play if you really want to get crazy. But how many people are going to click those guys instead of Jared Cook? I don't see it. I think people are really going to be on Cook this week.
Anyone have thoughts on Le'Veon Bell or Ty Montgomery, the running backs on the underdogs playing on the road? This might be the first slate in forever in which Le'Veon Bell isn't one of the 2 highest owned running backs, but it seems like people might be a little bit off of him this week just because of the elevated price and just kind of slate dynamics.
I still think he'll be owned. Silva, what do you think? I think he'll be 30, 35%, but –
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't know. Have you started building many lineups?
Yeah, I have. I think people will still figure out ways to get him in. I know it's tough, but you can definitely get there.
No, I was going to guess low because of it's really hard to build lineups with him in there. He's easy to get in there on FanDuel, but it's really hard on DraftKings. You've got to take some seriously crappy dudes.
Yeah, I think on FanDuel it'll be much more heavily owned, just like last week. I think that makes sense. DraftKings, he definitely is tough.
I think he might be under 10% on DraftKings.
Ooh, all right. We'll save that for the skill game props. I'll take the over on
that. Any thoughts on Ty Montgomery? Coming off, he was the number 1 running back last week, and granted, a lot of that was fueled by receptions. Then, of course, those 2 touchdowns. But any thoughts on him there, Rich?
Yeah, I had him kind of dialed up for the next little thing that you queued up. I have him kind of as a pivot off of Deion Lewis because, a lot of people are going to chase that Deion Lewis game, the 3 touchdowns. But Deion Lewis is a guy that had 6 career touchdowns before coming into that game. How many 3 TD Deion Lewis games are we going to count on happening every week? And he got the price bump. I think he's going to be really popular, but there's still – the opportunity for him not to hit really good value at where his price jumped to. And I think Montgomery is an interesting guy to pivot off of. We know that he's got a high ceiling. He's kind of sandwiched in a bunch of low scoring games around that 29-point game against the Bears, and he had 23 points last week. But I think it's a good week to kind of pivot to him as well because he had the 7 targets last week. That was the most he had since week 7. And we know that, kind of by proxy of they led so many games. The Atlanta Falcons, no team allowed more receptions or receiving yards out of the backfield than them. But we know that you want to attack their linebackers in coverage. That's how teams want to attack them. So, I think that Montgomery's a guy, if the Packers are going to devise a game plan, and we know Jordy's already banged up, might not be a go. Adams is banged up. He might not be a go in practice this week. It could be a good week that Ty Montgomery is incorporated into a passing game plan actually this week as well. So, I think he's a fun little pivot off of the Deion Lewis who will surely have probably maybe double exposure to.
Yeah.
And one of the issues with Ty Montgomery is that at times he's gotten kicked out of the game because he's blowing blitz pickups. And, last week he gave up 2 more sacks. But they stuck with him last week. He was 80% of the snaps. I think that was his highest snap rate all season, maybe his second highest. And the Falcons have the 3rd lowest blitz frequency in the NFL. They're not going to be trying to attack Ty Montgomery's pass protection problems like Rod Marinelli was. last week. So I think Ty Montgomery is an awesome play. I think he's a better play than Deion Lewis this week. I think LeGarrette Blount is kind of interesting, like going back to him this week. I mean, I know it was ugly if you used him last week, and Deion Lewis has, deservedly gotten a bigger role. But LeGarrette Blount was still getting the traditional goal line carries last week. He just got stuffed, and Deion Lewis late game goal line carry occurred just because the Patriots were still playing hurry up offense at that time. They just hurried back to the line and gave the carry to Deion Lewis. So, I mean, LeGarrette Blount is a guy who no one is going to look at, I think, this week, and he still has 2 touchdowns in his potential range of outcomes.
Oh, yeah, I like that call. I think running back is interesting because there's a lot of pivots here. But, yeah, going back to Montgomery really quickly, I think he's an awesome play. I think he's going to be relatively chalky on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I think he's going to be much lower owned, kind of like last week as well. I think a lot of people are going to do Deion Lewis, Montgomery, and then a third guy in the flex as well at running back. But, yeah, the backups are interesting. James White, I think you could definitely throw in tournaments as well. I mean, James White's 3,200 on DraftKings, Blunt's 44, and Lewis is 53. So the pricing's really, switched on that. I do think Lewis is the lead guy, but Blunt and White definitely, I think, are really nice GPP pivots. And then along that same lines, what do you guys think about Tevin Coleman? I mean, I think Coleman,
yes.
If you want to bank on a GPP guy, I think that makes sense too. I mean, he could have a huge game, and he's got breakaway speed too. So for tournaments, I think he makes a lot of sense.
I like his floor too. Like he's got 12.5 touches per game over the last 6. He's got 5 touchdowns in his last 5 games. Kyle Shanahan has used him specifically, Tevin Coleman, to attack opposing inside linebackers. And the Packers, they're not real, like they shuffled bodies at inside linebacker all season long. Tevin Coleman did not play when these teams met earlier in the year. It's quite possible that he would have ripped that game up, and we'd be looking at him in a lot different light maybe than he is right now. Like he would be the obvious chalk. I think he's an incredible play at 4,800 on DK.
Yeah, I like that. And one thing of note, too, just going back to the team totals, I mean, the Falcons have an implied team total right now of 32.5. It was implied around 33 earlier, too. The only thing that's really held them back in some of these games where they could have just gone absolutely off in scoring is just blowing the other team out. So in the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers on the other side, who's going to be throwing a ton, which is going to keep the clock alive, they're not going to be killing the clock very often, I think is really, really good. So I think the Falcons have a ton of upside here. And that's one other thing, too. Like in tournaments, I wouldn't hate going Freeman and Coleman, even though obviously they're negatively correlated, and I wouldn't do that normally. This week, it's very possible they could be 2 of the highest scoring running backs. So I think that's an interesting strategy this week as well.
Reeves, any thoughts there on Coleman?
Yeah, man. I mean, same thing. Most of what you guys said. I mean, he's only going to get you a dozen touches, but I think where his pricing falls on both sites, he's just a guy that just fits a lot of builds, no matter what direction you want to go. And then when he scored in 5 of his past 7 games since coming back from injury, he scored in 9 of 14 games that he's played. So I mean, you've got a nice little touchdown floor there, and you've got the added bonus of if by chance something at all was to happen to Freeman in game, I mean, he would blow up.
Yeah, definitely. This is a kind of random aside, but Pete, I know you like to stroll down narrative avenue sometimes. Any thoughts on Blunt going against the Steelers? Is something of like a pseudo revenge game there, or just sort of like that doesn't even factor in?
I'm not really thinking about it too much, but I do think that there's a lot of touchdown equity with Blunt. I mean, he's still like the Patriots get down there and they're not in hurry up like Evan talked about with the Deion Lewis touchdown. I mean, I think the plan is to bring in a big package and have Blunt be the guy. So I think there's a lot of touchdown equity there. Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Deion Lewis. In my mind, he's definitely their most talented back, so I don't see why in the playoffs they wouldn't use him as much as they can. But I do think that there's still nice upside with touchdowns for Blunt. The narrative, though, yeah, I mean, I see it, but I think the Patriots are going to do whatever's optimal at the time.
Right. Let's talk about some stacks that we might be interested in. And Pete, let's start with you. As far as kind of like the conventional stacks that we might be targeting, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think conventional stacks, I mean, you'll look to like Aaron Rodgers, and we'll have to see who ends up being healthy. But, Aaron Rodgers to Randall Cobb will certainly be popular. I think Brady to Edelman is also interesting if you're going to fade that game in terms of a quarterback. Matt Ryan to Sanu will also be chalky, like Evan talked about. I'm just curious what you guys think about Julio, because that's my first read. Like, I'm going to play like a main stack, it's going to be Julio and hope the ownership's lower. This toe injury has been lingering. He did miss some of the end of last game. What are you guys' thoughts on Julio?
Yeah, and it's real interesting because they played the first time. It was kind of a similar spot. He was kind of had like a little toe injury, and he had just the 3 catches for 29 yards. But they just ran cloud coverages at him like the entire game, and they were completely content for Atlanta to beat them through the air elsewhere, and Atlanta completely obliged. I mean, Gabriel scored, Aldrick Robinson scored a touchdown in that game, Sanu scored. I mean, but no team has been worse, defending the wide receiver position than the Packers. They allowed the most points per target to the position. So, I mean, I don't want to run away. It's similar to, like last week. They still have to respect that Atlanta is a dual threat team. They're not the Giants, that really can't run the football. Atlanta's going to be able to stay balanced and stay ahead of the sticks, frequently. So, I mean, I want to own a good amount of Julio as well. We know the ceiling is always there. I mean, maybe we can get them to dust off of Ben Wickery, who they just signed.
And Adam Levitan would be all over Aldrick Robinson. He'd be preaching about Aldrick. What does he call him? Sir Aldrick or something like that?
I think Lord Aldrick.
Lord Aldrick. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, let's save that for the contrarian stack portion of the show. Evan, any thoughts on who you might be looking to stack?
I mean, I think that everybody already got mentioned that was good. I feel like Brady Edelman, Dion, Patriots defense again. Wish I would have been on that more last week. I mean, Dion Lewis had playing them together. Dion Lewis only had 2 kickoff returns all year, and then all of a sudden he gets 3 last week and brings one back 98 yards to the house. Using Rodgers and Ty Montgomery together, I think is great. And same deal with Matt Ryan and the 2 Falcons RBs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rich, any thoughts there?
Yeah, pretty much echo the sentiments of all you guys. I mean, yeah, I like the Coleman-Freeman pairing just because the way the salaries really match up and what you can do at the receiver position with them. I mean, look at the past 3 games. They've each had 12.5 or more points, no matter what format you're playing. I mean, since Coleman returned in Week 12, combined, they're averaging 30 touches for 172 yards for scrimmage. They've got 15 combined touchdowns over the past 7 games. I feel like that if you pair them up, you've got a really good, combo there. And, it really allows you to play 2 really good receivers as well.
Mm-hmm. If we're looking to be contrarian, is that basically Roethlisberger and anyone on that team, or is that Ryan and like a non-Julio, non-Sanu wide receiver? Like, what are the ways to be contrarian and not crazy in this slate?
I feel like it's just playing guys that people are not going to be on, like LeGarrette Blount or Martellus Bennett. Martellus Bennett is still getting like elite tight end usage right now. He was 93% of the snaps last week. I think 2nd most routes run all year. He looks terrible. I mean, he is so slow right now. I think Jason Witten is a better athlete at this stage of the season than Martellus Bennett.
Wow.
Former teammates. Can you imagine both of them on the field at the same time running routes together?
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. But Martellus Bennett, the usage is still there for him. Jesse James, the usage was there for him last week. And don't you think that like Jesse James receptions are concessions that Bill Belichick will be willing to make in exchange for, not giving up monster runs to Le'Veon Bell and big pass plays down the football field to Antonio Brown? I mean, I remember in old playoff games against the Texans, whenever the Patriots would play the Texans, the game plan would always be eliminate Andre Johnson, don't let Arian Foster hurt you, and let Owen Daniels rack up 10 catches for 74 yards.
Yeah.
So that could help Jesse James. And Jesse James, dude, he's a good athlete. He ran by Eric Berry for a 26-yard gain last week. I think John Moore liked him coming out, right? He's a legit good athlete.
Penn State, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember playing him in DFS too. Tight end in college football DFS was pretty marginal most weeks.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
James was one of the guys who was actually higher priced sometimes and had some touchdown equity. So I don't mind the call. He's cheap. I mean, everyone's going to click Jared Cook. So you might as I think tight end is definitely a place to go contrarian. I'm not sure, like, out of these stacks, what's going to be most heavily owned at this point in time. I think we need some more injury stuff to break because I think people are looking at Atlanta with Julio and how that's going to shake out, how many snaps he's going to play, and then Devontae Adams, and I guess there's maybe like a 15% chance Jordy plays at this point in time, maybe a little higher as a decoy or something. So I think that's really going to dictate ownership with these stacks. I mean, Brady Edelman's the other one. I don't think Big Ben and Antonio Brown will be that heavily owned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. We haven't really – I mean, Pete, you just mentioned there Adams, but we haven't mentioned him all that much yet. And, he definitely is one of the best wide receivers on slate. I mean, out of guys playing, he has the most touchdowns on the season. Any thoughts on him going against that Falcons defense, which is just pretty much non-existent?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to know how healthy he is. And I guess you could say the same thing about Bennett we talked about. I mean, he came back after one snap, and I know Adams came back in the game as well, but that did look pretty gnarly. So I'm just curious how healthy he is and what they say on the practice reports and stuff with Adams. But, yeah, I mean, assuming he's a go and there's no concern about his injury at all, I mean, he's going to be very heavily owned. I mean, he'll probably be one of the guys with Aaron Rodgers that's a really popular stack. If he's not, if he's limited or there's any concern, Geronimo Allison will be a guy for sure that'll be heavily owned at 3,800. What do you guys think, Rich? What do you think about the Packers receivers just in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to Atlanta. Like, I'm going to have exposure to all these guys, by default. But, yeah, how it shakes out, who's going to be the most is we've got to wait till later in the week. We've got to have some clarity. We know Jordy's probably not really going to practice. The rib injury, I mean, I broke my ribs a couple years ago, and granted, I didn't go play NFL football, afterwards. But, like, after the 10-day point, like, it was, like, kind of okay. There's really nothing you can do. But he'll, give him a little flak jack. I bet he plays. I would feel good about Jordy Nelson playing. Now, you're probably going to only mix in your ownership, not a typical Jordy Nelson type week, because we don't know what kind of snaps he's going to get. But there's touchdown, upside there for sure with Jordy Nelson. And then Adams, another guy, like, that ankle, you let that go overnight. It's one thing coming back into the game, but, you let that go overnight. We got to see if he's going to practice during the week. Like, we really might come full circle here where Randall Cobb's the healthiest Packers receiver, which will be, kind of ironic the way the season went out. But, yeah, Geronimo Allison would free up a lot. If any of those guys are out or going to be doubtful, Geronimo Allison would be a guy that would completely free up a lot of salary to get you one more good player in a short slate, which could be a hammer. Even if he only got you, 7.5 points, you would gladly take that in a situation on DraftKings. So, I mean, yeah, he's averaged, 72% of the snaps over the past 4 games. 211 yards over that span, like nothing great, but at the price point, like he would free up, the opportunity for you to move up another spot from having to play a guy like Randall Cobb and being able to get a guy like Julian Edelman in. So it would open up a lot of things. You're just going to have to play it by ear, though, and see what happens for the Packers practice reports all week.
Yeah. Let's get to some bold calls here. And Reeves, let's go back to you since you are a very bold man. Any bold calls? Let's start with NFL and also give us a DFS bold call.
Yeah, me and you, whenever I get with you, you always rope me into some of these wild takes. But I did have the Garrett Blount take with you, so try to build off of that. My bold call is you guys have all been touching on all these tight ends, but I'm going to say that Austin Hooper is going to be the highest scoring tight end of the weekend.
Like that. He came back from that MCL. He had an idea. What did he end up with last game? I know he had that one.
No, he only had one catch, but I
remember that catch though. They brought him up. They're like, oh yeah, Hooper running by people.
He had 52% of snaps last week in his return. He missed the last 2 weeks of the regular season. The sycamore there, Levine Toilolo, still played 82% of the snaps. But did you watch Levine Toilolo in that game? Like, dude dropped like a for sure touchdown.
Yeah. Another awful.
So Hooper's actually good, and the MCL, like, he could definitely be rounding into form. I mean, that's something that like just takes time, but it's another.
Yeah. So the first time these teams played was it's actually when Jacob Tamme got hurt. And Hooper came in and he had 5 catches for 41 yards. They both combined for 7 for 70 in that game. Green Bay has kind of allowed like a string of modestly good games at tight ends. Witten got him for 6 for 59 and 1 last week. The week before, Will Tye actually ended up being the highest scorer in the wild card round, 4 for 66. The week before, Ebron got him 6 for 61. Rudolph 6 for 53 the week before that. On a slate where it's basically Jared Cook or bust almost, I think like, you know, having Hooper at min price, like I'm gonna dabble there.
That's sweet. All right, what's your NFL? Actually, Evan, you were going to say something there.
Yeah, he saw almost as much passing game usage last week as Toilolo. Toilolo had 24 routes. Hooper had 21 routes. But that was his first game back. I think Hooper was like 52% of the snaps. I love him. I mean, I own him.
Stanford guy.
Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, he was on fire there for a while. Caught like 14 targets in a row. And he's a pretty good athlete. I would love to play him. The arrow is pointing up. I wish I could see it, you know, one time before we had to use him.
That's the GPP play right there. That's your guy. I mean, how many guys are going to be like 2-3% that like can win? I mean, it could be one of those guys. I mean, he could be it. So I like that bold call quite a bit.
That's nice. Rich, what's your NFL call?
My NFL call, I think the Steelers are going to win, man. I don't know how bold that is, but I mean,
it's really bold.
It's bold.
That's sufficiently bold.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a 2-game slate. It's hard to be much bolder than that.
I mean, I like the Steelers. I just like that they're playing really complimentary football around. I mean, the Patriots really haven't been, you know, tested in my mind. I mean, I know Evan's been kind of going on their big like quarterback tangent, like of the litany, the rogues gallery of quarterbacks they've faced here the past 8 weeks has really been kind of something like D-level comic book, villainesque. So I mean, I think that it's a game where the Steelers can really crack some narratives, with Ben on the road and the way they've been running the football. Man, it's hard for me to fade a team that's playing the best defense and is running the football the way they are. So I mean, I'm going to go with the Patriots this week. Or the Steelers over the Patriots.
Mm-hmm. All right, Evan, let's kick it to you.
Bold call?
Yeah.
Taylor Gabriel over 100 receiving yards.
Nice. That's good. And then as far as the game goes?
For the games,
you can just piggyback on Rich's and Steelers.
No, I'm on the under here big time. I'll say that the game goes 10 points under the under.
It's nice. That's good.
10 points under the total. So I think the total right now is 51. It's 51. So I would need 41. I'd need like what? 24-17? Yeah.
That works. That's bold. Pete.
All right, mine are correlated. I'm going to say for football, the Falcons score 50 points, and Matt Ryan ties or breaks the single-season playoff record for touchdowns in a game, which currently is at 6. Steve Young, Tom Brady, and some guy I've never heard of for Oakland. Can't even – LaMonica? I don't know who that is.
It's the Mad Bomber, man, the Mad Bomber.
Yeah, I don't know who that guy is. Happened in 1969. He's going to –
No YouTube highlights on him, right?
Yeah, no, I can't find – I need to dig up some footage on him. Ryan's going to tie it. Matty Ice, he's just going to – this Falcons offense is just going to roll Green Bay. That's what I'm –
That's fantastic. All right, let's get to some of the skill game prop section of the show. But first, I just want to say we didn't get to it at the top of the show, but
let's go over how many skill game props Pete lost on Tyreek Hill last week.
Pete, it was not your week. I just you were or you would have been 12-11, but you went 0-10 on Tyreek Hill. So 10 losses on one player, 21 losses total. Both of those are single week records.
Did you guys see the video? First of all, there's 2 hilarious things about that. Like, obviously, I jinxed the shit out of Tyreek Hill, so I deserve to get punished for that one. But I got tweeted a video where there's like 20 plays where he was literally like wide open, no one within like 20 yards, and Alex Smith had no chance to hit him. Didn't even look his way. But the other thing that was hilarious, Chris Collinsworth did compare him to Randy Moss on the live broadcast. That was incredible.
Naturally, they're so similar as athletes. So anyway, so on the
when I heard that, that was incredible. I knew it was a disaster and everyone was piling on him, and then Collinsworth said that, but it was still gold.
So on the season, Levitan is 119 and 115. Pete, you're 135 and 149. I'm 87 and 73. And then the guests are 106, 110. So, of course, we've got two guests this week. So if both of you guys, do all right, the guests could finish above 500 on the season, which would be pretty cool. So let's go ahead and get started here. And Evan, you had a skill game prop earlier. I think a couple of them. Let's revisit that now. One of them had to do with Sanu, right? A top-owned wide receiver.
Yeah, that he'll be one of the three highest-owned wide receivers, Mohamed Sanu.
It's interesting. Pete, Rich, any thoughts on that?
On draft? Yeah, we're doing DraftKings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I agree. I just don't – a receiver, I mean, Edelman will probably be more heavily owned. Depending on how the Packers situation breaks down, they could be heavily owned. Geronimo could be really heavily owned, or maybe Devontae Adams.
I think Devontae Adams is going to be all right.
Yeah, I think he should be fine, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Randall Cobb. Maybe Randall Cobb gets there. I don't know.
Yeah.
After Randall Cobb, I mean, Sanu over Gabriel this week for sure in terms of ownership. Yes. You guys think?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's either he's gonna land in like that 2, 3, or 4 slot. So I think that's pretty sharp pie. I like it.
I think it's close. I could see him being 4 instead of like number 3 or number 2. Right now we have him projected number 3. So I think it's sharp, but I'll take that. I'll say he's not top 3. Rich, you want in on that?
Yeah, I'll say outside top 3, but yeah, I think he's going to be the guy everyone goes to.
I'll ride with Silva. I'll say top 3, so we can double that one down.
All right. Well, yeah, Pete, looking for more volume.
The interesting thing is people are going to chase that 9 for 84, but he had 5 for 50 and a touchdown on the very last drive of that game.
Mm-hmm.
So he was very close to having a very regular most new game.
I just think people will feel very comfortable clicking him.
Yeah. For sure. Evan, you had another one, right?
I wanted Gabriel. I want to place better.
You wanted Le'Veon Bell under 10%, right, Silva?
Oh, wait. I want Ben under 10%.
Big Ben?
Yeah. I want Ben under 10%.
I'll take the over, sure. What contest are we doing, by the way, here? Whatever their biggest one is.
Sure.
DraftKings.
Are they doing a quarter this year? Are they doing a quarter?
$250,000.
Yep, $250,000. All right, we'll do it based off that. That was another tilting thing about last week. I mean, it was a great week overall, but they could have run a Millionaire Maker last week. All the contests filled like 4 or 5 hours early. I feel like last week was like one of the most legendary playoff slates there could have been.
Oh, it was fantastic. So, Evan, you're saying Roethlisberger under 10%.
Under 10% in
the largest tournament.
$250,000.
Got it. I'll take the over. I'll go with Pete on that one.
Yeah, I'm taking the over on that.
Yeah, I'll say over as well, just because there's such a gap to his pricing that I think people will use him to make lineups where they get as many star players as they can.
Yeah. Pete, do you want to throw any out there, or do you want me to throw out some equity here?
Yeah. If you guys notice the stats there's a huge discrepancy between the volume Levitan and I are putting up versus.
No, it's true. It is true. There is, but I don't want to be a hog. I want to try to facilitate the action.
Yeah, no, that facilitating means throwing out some equity. You know what I mean?
All right. Yeah. Let's see here. I'll do something where I take the field, and so I'll take a few players. So I will do Le'Veon and Devonta Freeman, and then you guys can have the field. I feel like I'm giving away a lot of equity there
for the highest scoring running back.
For the highest scoring running back.
So you have Le'Veon and Lewis.
Le'Veon and Freeman.
Oh, sure, I'll take that.
No, I'm with you. I don't really see how it's not Le'Veon.
All right, so Rich is on the Le'Veon and Freeman. I have the field. Where are you going, Silva?
I want Le'Veon and Freeman.
All right. Volume. Boom.
Leverage.
Give me a huge Tevin Coleman game. Give me a Montgomery game. You guys already chatted him up. All right.
I mean, I can see it. I can see it happening.
Notice how, Freedman, you toss out the equity and both the guests hop on your side, and I am the one giving away, the equity.
I feel like I was giving away equity. Taking the field is always the smart move.
Maybe I thought it's interesting. That is an interesting prop. I think that's a good one. I'll throw one out there for Matt Ryan. I'll take Matt Ryan. Trying to think how we can do what's a reasonable. What if I took? I'll take Matt Ryan and Ben Roethlisberger versus Brady and Rodgers. How about that? In terms of who's the highest scoring quarterback, it has to be a negative EV choice for me.
I want Rodgers.
Yeah, I think that's a good prop. I'll take the Rodgers Brady side.
Okay. Yeah, if you add up the salaries, my guys add up to 13.5. Your guys add up to 15.2.
Well, yeah, but we're looking for upside there.
That's why we took the bet.
Yeah, smart. Silva's on it. He's on it. All right, so I just offered up my equity. Let's see if I can get some.
Well, Rich, are you jumping on that one?
No, I'm going to take the Rodgers side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. More volume for me.
All right, I got this one specially prepared for Pete. All right, so no player on any roster remaining in the playoffs went to Colorado State. No practice squad, no injured reserve guys, no 53. Okay.
But a coach who got suspended or is in big trouble.
Right. But there is a prominent guy who played at Colorado, Mason Crosby, and because you profess to be not only a CSU fan but also University of Colorado or Colorado University fan, you have to take the over on my prop, okay? Regarding this player. All right, so you're locked in.
I'm not, whatever you say, Silva.
All right,
Burkhead call, by the way, Silva, that was premium. That was the moneymaker right there, week 17.
Mason Crosby, 4 field goals. If he goes over, you win. If not, we get the win.
Fine, even though I freaking hate that. They're gonna be down. They need to score touchdowns, bro. They're not making.
There's no way that happens. I mean, it's conceivable, but it's
the Falcons' red zone defense isn't even good, is it? I mean, last I checked, they were terrible. They're giving up touchdowns and bunches.
Crosby's attempted 2 or fewer field goals in 9 of his past 10 games.
All right, so
but I have to take it. More volume.
You should at least made it 3. You should at least win 3.
All right, well, let's do 3.
4 is egregious.
3. Yeah. 4 is horrible.
All right, Silva, here's a prop you have to take. I'm going to take Brady under 50 fantasy points. You have to take the over, okay? I do like the Colorado angle, though. That's fun. I'll definitely take I'll take the under on 3. That's fine.
Okay.
3's a push. Is that what we're agreeing on? Or 3 you guys win?
You have to take the over on Crosby field goal.
I have to take the over on 3, so I have to take over. Okay. Is 3 a push, though? Is 3 a push?
I mean,
3.5 is really.
We're trying to be fair.
Okay, 3.5. It's 3.5.
How about all right, I want Taylor Gabriel. All right, he's the wide receiver 7 on DraftKings. I want him as a top 4 in receiving yards. Top 4 in receiving yards.
Sure, I'll take the under on that.
Yeah, I'll take the under.
I'll go with you on that one. I'll take it.
You want the over there, Rich?
Yeah, I'm going to go with it.
Okay. 2v2.
Get some action out there, buddy.
All right. I'll do one where again I'll take some wide receivers and you guys can take the field if you want. Let's see. I'll do Antonio and Julio
Versus the field?
versus the field. I feel like I'm giving away a lot there.
That's a good one. Finally, giving up had to squeeze it out of you, but we got one. I'll take the field on that for sure.
Field.
Yeah. I'll take the field as well.
There you go. You're welcome. It's going to be Edelman who screws me. I know that's
yeah.
Anyone want to take Jared Cook and some donkey versus the field?
No, it would just have to
Hooper,
be.
man.
It would have to be Jared Cook alone against the field.
No, Cook and Hooper. That's interesting.
No, just
Cook's still really bad, yeah.
What are the odds that Darius Green plays? I mean, this concussion thing. I mean, he's got to be out, right?
Not playing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is he done for his career, Silva? You think he's done?
Their longest tenured beat writer wrote in this chat today that Darius Green, he's not going to play. Probably not going to play the rest of the year. So it's just.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Well, one thing before we can get some other skill props, but I wanted to get both of your guys' opinion too, just on like things you guys are bullish on for the next season too. You know, we're pretty much through the football season in terms of fantasy. Obviously, there's still this week for DFS, but I also want to hear just a couple takes on some guys next year. But we can finish out these skill game props. Freedman, you have anything else you want to throw out there, bud?
Yeah, I'll do Jared Cook. You guys take the field if you want.
Yahtzee. I'll take the field.
You guys want?
Dude, I'm going Austin Hooper, man.
Cool.
All right, let's go to defenses. I'll take the field versus the Patriots. If anyone wants the Patriots versus the field,
I'll do the field. Defense. I'll do the field.
Yeah, this is a disastrous slate for defenses. It's literally like the four worst offenses you could possibly play against.
Well, yeah, I mean, just look at the Vegas lines. The lowest team total right now. I guess the Steelers is 22.5, but everything's bright green on the Vegas page. I mean, it's a 61 total and a 51 total right now, or a 60 total. I guess it's moved down to, but it's just they're expecting a ton of points this week.
Yeah, it's going to be glorious. Any other, Rich? Do you have any skill game props you want to throw out?
Let's see. What do you guys want to do? I wanted to do Ben versus Brady, but we already did the quarterback one.
Well, we can do that.
Go. We can do it. You want to take Ben? I'll give you some points.
I'll take Ben straight up. I think because he's definitely behind the eight ball here. But I think I'm going to take Ben anyways.
All right, I'll take Brady over Ben straight up.
I'll do Brady.
All right, Rich. Nice work.
All you
up there.
How about punts in that Atlanta game? 4.5.
4.5 total in the whole game?
Yep. Combined punts.
Wow, that's a good line.
It was 5 the first time they played.
I'll take the under. Sure, I already predicted freaking 50 points for the Falcons, so I might as well take the under on that. That's a good line, though. I like that. I'll take the under, though.
Evan, are you on that one?
No, I'll take the over.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over.
I'm going under.
Nice. One guy we didn't talk about that is another contrarian play that could be a tournament winner for you guys is Michael Floyd. Depending on what happens, I expect you guys expect Hogan to play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if Hogan plays, I still think Floyd will see snaps, and he has some touchdown equity. So that's a guy that should be really low owned. I mean, do you guys have a preference on someone like him or like J.J. Hardy or something? That's the tournament kind of play you're going to potentially have to make.
That light hitting shortstop for the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, it's batting 8th somehow that you have to play. That's nice. Okay, all right, let's go through all these guys real quickly. Floyd, Hardy, Aldrick Robinson, Amendola, Sammy Coates. I'm not even going to say Colby Hamilton. Any of those guys, who are you taking?
Sammy Coates could run a kickoff back. That guy nothing.
It's horrible.
Who are you guys taking out of that group? They've got some rosters.
Robinson.
You need that savings. You'd say Aldrick Robinson?
Yeah, I'll represent Levitan.
I think it's Floyd personally out of those guys.
Yeah,
just it could be fun because so many people wanted to use him last week, and he was so terrible in that game, and that no one's gonna play.
Oh,
him.
did you see that one YouTube video of that guy making lineups?
No.
Oh, there's a video that got around that was just hilarious, and he had Michael Floyd in his lineup. It was some weird background music and making lineups, and he was saying how Michael Floyd scored a touchdown. He's a lock to do it again. It's pretty good.
Wait, was this Manzanelli?
It was like the analysis was just incredible. I gotta find the video again. Somewhere.
All right. So while Pete is searching for this video, Rich and Evan, let's go to the point that Pete wanted to get on earlier. Any thoughts for kind of big trends that you're looking at for next season? Players you think might be emerging, kind of new situations that you think might be profitable, especially maybe in the early half of the season?
I mean, I haven't thought a whole lot ahead to next year yet, but I think that there are a few guys that I'll be watching closely. I want to see where Kendall Wright lands as a free agent. I think he can play a little bit. If he lands in a good spot for opportunity, he could be a guy that kind of rises up like Rashard Matthews did when he got out of Miami. I think that next year, hopefully, we get Amari Cooper at a depressed cost, because I think that he'll have a good shot to break through as a big time, like what we expect him to be. I mean, really looking back, like considering how young he is, it really shouldn't be surprising that he's been a little bit up and down so far in his career. But I mean, I think ultimately, man, he's going to be a 100-catch receiver, and we'll see how it goes with Crabtree. I think Corey Coleman will be a guy who also could be a very interesting buy after this offseason. I don't know. We'll see if the Browns can upgrade their quarterback slot. But I mean, Corey Coleman is a special talent. I think reminded me a little bit of OBJ coming out of Baylor, and that's a guy who I want to jump on right now.
One quick follow-up there on Amari Cooper. I think it's not dissimilar from Mike Evans' situation last year, where he regressed a little bit in his second year. He still ended up having over 1,000 receiving yards, just didn't have the touchdowns, and people were pretending like this was a guy who is just not good at football anymore. I'm a young player. I think there's definitely room for that third-year explosion, just like we've seen with Evans this year.
Both guys who were super young when they came out. I mean, Cooper even more so than Mike Evans.
Yeah, definitely. Rich?
I mean, listen, I was just happy Week 17 came. I kind of blacked out once that happened. But basically, I mean, they're just looking for big regression trends, guys that, underachieved more due to luck this year. I mean, I think you're looking at like the Redskins passing game. They should have had a lot more touchdowns, predicated by, yards per attempt, Kirk Cousins. The Bengals, Andy Dalton as well. He's a guy that was way under, touchdown rate for the kind of output he was having. So, I mean, you're looking for bounce backs in those types of situations and passing games. I really haven't delved into like a lot of regression stuff yet, but that's basically what I look for. Like you mentioned Mike Evans last year, and Mike Evans is a little bit different because like it was obvious like he had bad touchdown luck last year, whereas like Amari Cooper, like he kind of like has been this kind of player now for 2 years. Like he's probably not going to be a high touchdown ceiling guy ever. So I mean, basically, just looking for regression analysis. Look for guys that ran into more bad luck than just had poor statistics. In terms of bounce back.
Yeah, Amari Cooper was the guy I was going to talk about, and he had like 5 touchdowns where he stepped out of bounds by like half an inch, got called back. Come on. I understand what you're saying, though. The red zone, the target Seth Roberts more in the red zone than they do Amari Cooper. So I understand what you're saying, but I do think he has really, really big play upside in almost every game. I mean, the guy is a freak athlete in terms of just top-end speed, and a lot of his touchdowns were long this year. So obviously that's
I am surprised so many people like are like people that like took him at like 101 rookie picks like are like disappointed, which is really mind-boggling to me. Given rookie hit rates, but like you got 2,000-yard seasons out of a guy that starts career, like people are disappointed. Yeah,
I mean, I think I still hope there's a little bit of improvement. Obviously, Carr's injury hopefully comes back 100%. The running game should be pretty good for them down the road. I expect things too for the Chargers. Keenan Allen coming back. I think that could be really interesting next year as well. They really have a good passing game with Phillip Rivers, Tyrell the Gazelle. We'll see what they do at the tight end position if Gates really does come back, but that could be interesting for me. In terms of potentially like the NFC teams, I mean, I'm struggling a little bit to see like teams I think are undervalued right now going into next year. Like, what do you guys think about like Minnesota next year? Like they started off, everyone thought they're one of the best teams in the NFL, then they fell from grace with the offensive line troubles. But what do you guys think about them?
I still like Diggs. I mean, Diggs is a guy that flashed. He had 2 seasons now where he's given us small pockets of wide receiver 1 production and just hasn't been able to sustain it. And, he kind of got hurt this year and just never got that volume back. And then Thielen kind of got in his way. But I mean, he's a guy that's shown like a really high ceiling. So I mean, I'm still into him. It's gonna be curious to see how the rest of the passing game shakes out, though, and that they've got to find some kind of running game, man, for sure.
And they traded their first rounder for Bradford.
Oh yeah,
that's not good.
Yeah.
And then the other team that I think is interesting. I mean, I don't know why I threw out Minnesota, but I think that division's interesting. But the AFC, like the Jags and the Titans and all those teams, they could be really DFS relevant at the beginning of the year next year too. But it's tough. Definitely haven't thought too much about it, but wanted to touch on some guys, and definitely Cooper was the guy I wanted to bring up for sure. Sterling Shepard's another receiver I think could have a good year. Seeing a lot of single coverage the opposite side of Odell Beckham again.
One last question here, and this would involve some conjecture, but there have been reports about Kyle Shanahan potentially going to San Francisco for the head coaching job there. What do we think the Falcons might look like without Shanahan? I mean, I think he's been a huge part of their offensive revolution over the last 2 years. I would be kind of hesitant about that offense without him, but I would really like to hear your thoughts on that.
I think that ideally what they would do would be like promote the quarterback's coach and keep the exact same offensive concepts in place. I don't know. I mean, the value of a coach, I think, can be overrated. It's probably overrated more often than it is underrated, because it's really just about the players, and the coach's job really should just be to get the rock to the good players, but yeah, I mean, I think that it looks like he's got a chance to move on, although everybody else turned down the 49ers, and now Kyle Shanahan all of a sudden he's some lock to go to San Francisco. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
Mm-hmm. Rich, any thoughts there?
No, I mean, Ryan was such an obvious buy for his price point in seasonal leagues, because based on what he ran into some bad luck last year in terms of career peripherals, whereas this year it's so obvious that dude, you can't take Matt Ryan a top 5 pick next year if Shanahan's not there. I mean, dude, he threw 38 touchdowns this year. They had the best scoring offense in terms of efficiency since the 07 Patriots. 7.1% touchdown rate. His whole career he's been around 4.5, 4.7.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be real hard for me to jump back in on that, and pay top dollar for it. It was the Cam Newton effect last year, as well. When you buy these guys when they're at such a premium discount given the position they play, but you can't go in and buy them as top 5 guys and pay that that top dollar, that premium draft capital, when you've got a body of work that says, hey, that was the outlier.
Right.
Yeah, Cam Newton, Kelvin Benjamin, there's 2 guys to buy next year. That's someone that I didn't think enough about. They definitely regressed in a big way. I think Kelvin has a lot of touchdown equity depending on what format you're playing next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know there are people who don't like him just because of the elevated age, and then also still he was never that great of an athlete, and then the ACL tear I think has probably slowed him down a little bit, but he's still a touchdown monster. He's got that big body and the red zone target, so that it will be interesting to see what happens there. Pete, any final words you want to drop on the show here?
No, just pumped to do the show with you guys. Obviously, 2-game slate's a little interesting. We have to bring up some weird thoughts on certain guys, but should be fun. Hopefully it's chalky again. And Silva, you're the GOAT, man. Just have to tell you that. The matchup article it's legendary.
Thanks, Pete, and thanks for having me back on the show. I've listened to a bunch of these over the course of the year. Great way to get the week started. I always look for it on Tuesday nights. Trying to get it right when it comes out. It's such an awesome show. You guys had incredible guests all year too. Some of the sharpest dudes.
And we're closing with 2 sharp dudes here, so it's a great way. And I think we actually will have maybe one more show next week, a kind of wrap-up show. But, in terms of slates, this is the last one for the year, and really fantastic to have both of you guys on. Rich and Evan, thanks for being on the show. Everyone, be sure to follow them on Twitter at Lord Reeves and at Evan Silva. Also follow Pete at CSURAM88. And you can follow me at Matt F. the Oracle. I'm Matthew Freedman, and this has been the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast for the NFL Conference Championships. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Podbean. And don't forget to check out our NFL dashboard with positional breakdowns and matchup previews out by Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck, and we will see you next week.